It may have only been 10 episodes ago, but it has been several months since I published episode number 822, titled The Most Powerful Journaling Practice I've Ever Experienced. That episode was published back on May 25th of this year, 2026. And well, here I am, just over 2 months later, and I have had a daily, consistent practice of that exact method. Now, if you listened already to episode number 822 and you've heard me talk about the Plod Note Pro and you're kind of like, I think I'm over that, Cliff, you can feel free to skip this episode because I'm going to share a lot of what I've already shared in episode 822. So if you haven't listened to that episode, you don't need to feel like you need to go back and listen to it. But I certainly have a lot more clarity about the process that I use and or the value that it brings to me. And so I wanted to share with you an update on this process of daily logging and daily reflection. What prompted me to create this newer, updated version of this topic is that I was recently interviewed by my friend Liz Slade for her podcast. And in the interview, she had asked me a question about how I handle distractions, or how do I handle it when all of a sudden I'm in a protected, focused block of time that is devoted to an action that I said I'm going to only work on this, but all of a sudden all of these ideas flow in. And so I began to talk about the fact that I capture those and return to return my focus and my attention to the block of time, to the work that I was committed to doing. And when I say I captured, I said there used to be a number of ways that I capture it, but recently I've been using this tool here, and I showed her my Plod Note Pro, which is a little digital audio recorder, magnetically attaches itself to the back of my phone, and it automatically syncs all of those recordings to an app inside of my phone, which then I can click to transcribe, and it's a beautiful thing. And I began to share with her that I do this, not just in my protected blocks of time, but I also have this habit of logging throughout the day. And she's like fascinated by this. And it kind of slowly took us down a little bit of a side quest in the interview and the conversation, which was fun, and I always enjoy those. So I began to share my practice with her. And anyway, I realized, wait a second, there's way too much about this to unpack in someone else's interview, and it deserves an episode of its own. Now, I recognized immediately that I already have episode 822 of the Cliff Ravenscraft Show. But if I had it all over to do again, there's new insight that I've experienced over these 2 months. So I want to first share with you what this is, all right? So I wake up in the morning, and the first thing that I will do after I come down the steps, after, getting dressed and all the stuff, I'll press this little button and I say, good morning. It is 4:17 a.m. on Wednesday, July 29th. I am just now walking downstairs. I'm grabbing my drink for the morning, and I'm walking over into the reading room where I'm going to sit here and process my day. Now, that first recording could be as short as a few seconds, and I'm just like, hey, it's 4:17 and I just woke up. I feel a little groggy. I'll check in a little bit. But one of the things that I've been doing lately is I've been combining this thing called, or at least the idea, one of the premises of this thing called morning pages. I've been an avid journaler my entire adult life. And so the idea of morning pages is that you would share your stream of consciousness thoughts and let them flow onto the page, not editing anything at all. Well, one of the things that I'll do many mornings is I will have an audible spoken version of my stream of consciousness thoughts without editing straight into the Plod Note Pro. It'll just capture everything that I'm saying. And so I just talk, and sometimes I randomly just jump from one thing to the next, completely seemingly unrelated things. I just speak out loud all of the various different things that are there in my consciousness, and I get it all out. And it's such a cathartic and therapeutic experience. It's like, wow, okay, that's wonderful. And one of the things that I love about this version of my morning pages is that that actually can get captured, and you'll hear how I do this throughout the day. Then after my meditation and stuff like that, I will say, okay, I'll stop that recording, and I might check in a little bit later. I say, okay, it is now 5:58 a.m. I've just completed my morning meditation. And I'll say something along the lines, the guided meditation I did today was this, and it had this practice. And one of the things that stood out to me was this. And this is how I'm feeling in this moment. This is my state, my emotional state. This is my way of being right now, how I would explain what's going on in my mind. And then I sit there and I think, okay, as I think about my day, as I look at my calendar, here are what I determined to be the top 3 priorities. If nothing else gets done, these are the 3 things I am most committed to today. And also I see that I have these 2 scheduled calls, and obviously those 2 scheduled calls are going to be among my 3 things, but there are a couple other items that I'd really like to get through today. And I just log all of that. And then I stop recording. And then I'll go down into my office and I'll say, okay, it is now 6:17 a.m. and I am about ready to do 2 hours devoted to my invitation engine. I'm going to reach out to people that I have deep relational context with, and also some sort of recent signal of our interaction. There's been some sort of recent engagement between myself and or this person or this group of people. And I'm going to reach out to them and make an invitation, whether that be a direct invitation to a coaching session, a direct invitation to my mastermind group called Momentum over at, by the way, cliffravenscraft.com/momentum if you're interested. Or sometimes I just reach out to somebody with an invitation to reveal a threshold, meaning, is there something going on in your life that you're currently facing where I could be of any support and or encouragement to you? And I devote between 90 minutes to 2 hours a day, every day, to that practice. And so I log, hey, it is this time, and I'm just now entering this 2-hour block of time. And then, and that's the only note that it gets. And then if all of a sudden, anywhere inside of that 2-hour block of time, if I found myself distracted and I started going down a little rabbit trail, or a side quest, if you will, I will say, oh, wow, it is 6:47 a.m. And for the last 13 minutes, I realize I'm not doing my invitations. Here's what triggered this. Here's the optimization that I started doing on my CRM. I just now realized, I became consciously aware that this is happening. You know what? I would like to be reminded at the end of the day to schedule a block of time to optimize my CRM, to make this easier. But now that I've captured this, now that I'm aware of this, I'm going to return to sending more invitations, and then I stop that recording. And then at some point, I'm like, okay, it is now 7 a.m. or it's now 8 a.m. and I've just completed my block of time for invitations. I'm going to devote the next 30 minutes to catching up on all of my email inboxes, or my DM inboxes, and then I'll stop that. And as I'm going through those, if something important comes up, I capture all of this stuff. I capture meaningful events throughout the day, decisions throughout the day. If I experience something that triggers some sort of emotional reaction inside of me, I trigger that. I explain in detail what I'm feeling in my body, the story that the narrator is expressing. And if you're not familiar with that language, the narrator is what I call that voice in my head. It's that one who's always spinning stories and trying to create meaning about everything that I'm experiencing throughout the day. And somewhere I've heard people say that they don't have an inner narrator that talks all the time, but boy, I have that voice in my head that talks, and I call it the narrator. And I recognize and am very adamant about the fact that that is not me. It is an aspect of my personality. It's my persona, and I recognize that there's value in what it has to share, but it's not always accurate. And oftentimes it spins doom and gloom stories out of the smallest things. I don't know. Maybe you never deal with that, but I have this thing called the inner narrator. So when it shows itself, I capture it. It's like because sometimes I'll just forget that it happens. I'll get beyond it somehow, and not just somehow. I have practices to get beyond it. But anyway, I log all of this stuff. When I have a business or relationship development that comes up, I log it in my little note. Just imagine these anywhere between 10-second audio notes all the way up to 3 to 5 minute audio notes. When I finish a coaching conversation, I might have some insights. It's like, you know what? I just realized that if I would have been a little bit more curious and didn't rush to assume that I understood what the problem was. They came in and said, this is the problem that I have. And I recognized that I bought into that. But it was only about 17 minutes later that I realized that that wasn't actually the problem. And I could have caught that sooner if I would have stayed curious and asked one more question. And so I remind myself that this was my experience. Anyway, I capture unexpected disruptions that, because I want to be more consciously aware of just how much life shows up at my front door. I don't know about you, but I have this tendency when I'm planning my days or I'm planning my week ahead, I seem to have this idea that everything's going to flow perfectly and reality's just going to pass over my house, if you will. that unexpected, undesirable, or inconvenient situations just aren't going to happen because I am so clearly devoted to good work. There's no way anything could or should happen to me that is undesirable. But I don't know about you, those do show up in my life. And so when they show up, I log it. And I also share my thoughts about them. And I share the impact that they have on the amount of time that the narrator was given, the amount of time that it took my nervous system to get back to a state of peace instead of fight or flight. All of these different things and just thoughts that might otherwise disappear. Sometimes they're really good things. I don't just capture the inconvenient stuff. I capture like things that are praiseworthy, things where somebody sent me a message and said this. It's like, you know what? Hey, I just got this. It is 11:52 a.m. I just got this email from so-and-so. And my favorite line in the email is this. They said, fill in the blank. And here's what that makes me. You know what? This is why I do it. And I just record these different notes. Anyway, I create daily logs and I capture them in all of these things. Now, there is a problem that logging all of this stuff, doing all of these daily logs throughout the day, there is a problem that this practice solves. You see, before I was doing this practice, and I did this way before I had the Plod Note Pro, but never to this level, not at this granularity throughout the day. I did used to carry what I called a daily log. It was a physical handwritten journal, and I would write sometimes 15, 20 different time-stamped updates inside a physical journal. So I did have this process. But writing it and having the physical journal with me everywhere I go, not necessarily convenient nor practical. And so therefore, this is much easier for me with my Plod Note Pro to do this. But before I had this practice, and certainly before I've been this consistent, and by the way, I'm now at least 3 months of 7 days a week, every single week without fail, recording these multiple daily log entries and then combining them and then turning them into what I call a daily reflection. I'll get into all of that here in this episode in detail. But before I had this practice at this level of consistency, my evaluation of the day at the end of the day was often disproportionately shaped by what was left unfinished. So that's the problem. I don't know about you, but there have been a number of times I was like, man, I woke up at 4:00 this morning. I had a great morning routine and I had a couple of scheduled commitments. And I'm pretty sure all of that went pretty well. But man, here's all of the things that came up that all of a sudden created what I call open loops. They are new problems that are in need of a solution, and they currently haven't yet been solved. They don't currently yet have a place on the calendar for me to contain them. And so all of this stuff happens. And then at the end of the day, all I'm focused on, or all the narrator is focused on, is the latest problem or the strongest emotional reaction that occurred for the day. It seems the narrator likes to spin its wheels on the unresolved decision or the unresolved plan, solution, the problem, the relationship that has red flags all over it that needs to be addressed. Oh my gosh. At the end of the day, the narrator seems to focus on what was let's just say it's disproportionately shaped by all of those things. And that's why I capture not just this was unexpected, here's something. No, I capture the great stuff as well. And so by the end of the day, what I do is I take all of those recordings and I'm able to hit select, and then I hit select all. And so let's just say it has anywhere between 15 to 35 different short audio recordings from the Plod Note Pro. And I merge them all together as one single audio file. And then I hit the button to transcribe it. And I take it over to my AI tool of choice. And I'm still an open AI ChatGPT user, have been since they first opened up the $20 a month plan. And I still love it to this day. Just saying. Anyway, and here's what I ask AI to do. See, I've already, by the way, the other thing I want to share with you is, everything that I've explained up to this point is called daily logging. Now that is different from what I call my daily reflection. They're two practices that is actually one big practice, or they're two elements of one practice. Let's say it that way. So here's what the audio notes and the merged transcript for the day is called my daily log. So that's the first thing. Now, the purpose of the daily log is to get my reflection for the day. Now, oftentimes in the morning, I will go into ChatGPT and I'll start a new thread. And I said, well, hello there, Mira. I call my ChatGPT Mira, M-I-R-A. And it is a name that is reminiscent of being a mirror. And if you listen through to this episode all the way, you will hear that this is all about using AI to be a mirror of what my experience is, reflecting back to me what I am capturing throughout my day. So I'll start it in the morning and say, hello, Mira, it's Cliff. Today is Wednesday, July 29th, 2026. I would like to begin this thread to start for our reflection for the day. And Mira now knows through its memory and stored instructions that I've given it that what I mean when I'm opening up a thread, that means that throughout my day, I may be in the course of my work asking Mira to help me process some questions I have about, hey, here's an email that I got. What do you think about this? And going back and forth. And here's my thoughts on this. What do you think? And getting kind of like a sparring thinking partner, bouncing ideas off of and stuff like that. And Mira is really great at helping to helping me see patterns where it's like, Cliff, I see why you want to say it that way, but here's maybe a different way to frame it. What do you think about this? And I'm like, wow, no, I actually like the way I say it better. Or many times it's like, okay, yeah. if at my highest and best, that is exactly what I would want to say. That is more in alignment with how I would choose to be versus where I was in the moment when I suggested what I was about ready to say in my response to such and such. I don't know if you ever have those, but I have those kind of conversations. But anyway, these get logged in the same thread that will eventually produce my end of day reflection. I then will oftentimes take transcripts of meetings and other things. My wife and I go for a 2-mile walk every day, Monday through Friday. And she loves my Plod Note Pro. She wants one for herself. She's not quite sure. She's still pondering it, but one of the things that she will do, by the way, we record. I turn my Plod Note Pro on as soon as we walk out the door, and we have a 45 to 47 minute conversation every single morning for 2 miles while we're walking outside. And I would say that 2 or 3 days out of the week, out of the 5 days that we walk together, she will say, hey, can you text me the transcript of our conversation during our walk today? Because she wants to process that with her ChatGPT in some of the things that she's doing in her business. And so I take that transcript, I send it off to her, and it sometimes is folded into my daily log as a merged file, and sometimes I'll just drag it in separately and say, hey, Stephanie and I just had this conversation. I'd like your feedback on these 3 things that I brought in. And so if I've already drugged that in to the thread for the reflection for the day, it just sits there as context at the end of the day. It doesn't actually have to be merged with all of my other daily check-ins, my daily logs, because it's already in the thread. And so then I'll just swipe that out and file it away, that transcript from our walk. But I'll also take other meetings that I have and things like that. And so by the end of the day, let's just say it's 5:30 p.m., I've just had my day, and that thread that I started early in the morning has lots of context well above and beyond what was captured in my daily log on my Plod Note Pro. But then what I do is I'm like, okay, I want AI to identify patterns. I want it to challenge my thinking. I want it to compare my behavior, the things that I say are my values, with my actual actions. I want it to help me decide what deserves my attention tomorrow. I want to listen to it reflect back to me what my day was. And I actually ask it to share some interpretation, some thoughts, some advice. I wanted to identify blind spots. In fact, here are some. So I have all of this built into a prompt, by the way. And if you're interested at the end, I'll tell you how you can get my exact prompt. And it is an in-depth prompt. But here are some of the deeper layers that are inside of my prompt. This isn't all of them, but here are some of the instructions that it has inside of it. First of all, I tell my ChatGPT to treat the entire thread as context for my reflection, not just the daily log transcript that that I've just attached at the end of the day. Also, I instructed, I do not want you to simply give me a summarized chronological report. At 8 a.m. you did this, at 8:47 you checked in and you said this. No, that's boring. I don't need that. It could be valuable. Don't get me wrong, but that's not what I want. Instead, I'd like you to ingest everything in the daily log, ingest everything in that context of that one thread throughout the entire day. And I want you to identify what is the real headline of the day. What is the major theme of the day? And then I want you to break down all of the other themes. And I don't want you to be brief and to the point. I do not want you to be concise. I want you to be thorough. I want you to be detailed. I want this I, I'm willing to invest as much time as it needs for me to get through it. I need you to tell me what has shifted, what's been clarified. And also, I need to know what's at the end of the day. What is a list of all of the things that are not yet resolved? I want you to be compassionate with me, but I also want you to point out my blind spots. I want you to give me strategic critique. I want you to push back on things that I state. I want you to say, hey, here's something I would love to push back on. I be upfront with me. And there's a bunch of other things inside of here, but at the end of it, I'm like, listen, I would love to identify what are some of the things I should carry into tomorrow. And I would love for you to go through the entire context of everything and give me a list of potential action items for me to consider, whether it be for a to-do list or a calendared action or a project list for later, just anything that would seem to be a potential action item. At the very end, I would like, here are your action items for the day. And so that is the different layers of the prompt. It's not all of it, but again, if you stick around here for a few more minutes, I'll tell you how you can get it. But here's what happens after I get the reflection. I first copy the entire reflection and I paste it into my journal inside of Notion. I've been using Notion as my journal of choice for the last several years, and it is powerful. There are many reasons why I love using Notion for my journal. It's not an episode topic for today, so that'll come at another time maybe. But anyway, I paste it into journal. Now, oftentimes, Notion has a limit on how much text you can paste, and so it would prefer that you import a text file. Now, I don't want to go through the entire process of doing that, so oftentimes what I'll do is my reflection is broken down into many different points or themes throughout the day, and sometimes, on average, there's between 20 to 27 themes. And so I'll copy and paste items one or themes from the beginning all the way down to through the end of theme number 7. Copy that, paste. And then, okay, here's 8 through 13 and so on until it takes probably about 3 minutes to copy and paste. Could I automate that? Yes. Am I interested in doing that right now? No. I copy and paste it over. Now I've got a log of it inside of my Notion database or in my journal, which is wonderful because I sometimes go back and I'm looking for things and I can search it. It's amazing. Anyway, the next thing I do is I go over to ChatGPT and I hit copy and it copies the entire thing to my clipboard, and I use an app called Speechify. Speechify is a text-to-speech app, and I simply click a button and it pastes the entire reflection into this app. And it takes about 3 seconds to fully ingest it. And then I click play and I listen to the reflection spoken to me in a beautiful voice that I've come to associate with Mira. And I hear it spoken back to me. Here's what the theme of today is. Here's the it's just an incredible experience. Now, I actually have Speechify read this to me at 1.75 speed. So it's almost 2x. And even then, it's between 20 to 30 minutes of audio spoken out loud. But it's also highlighting all of those words as I'm seeing it. So I'm seeing the words, I'm hearing the words, I can pause and go back. It's like, wow. And I allow myself to hear the entire day reflected back to me as a complete experience. Not a perfect experience, but just overall. And often the following morning, I'll wake up and I'll go through and say, you know what, there are a couple meaningful items. And this happens during that process of my morning pages where I'm stream of conscious thinking. I'll be flipping through my journal inside of Notion. And I'm like, here are a couple of things that stood out to me and blah, blah, blah. And it allows me to carry things into my meditation intentions, my planning for the day, my coaching conversations that are coming up, all of the stuff. And so the next thing I want to share with you is what all of this has produced in my life. Well, first of all, this practice has helped me recognize the systems that are creating both the desired results that I want in my life, but it's also very clearly pointing out the undesired results, the systems that are actually creating those undesired results. I can't hide from them because they're right there. I recorded it in all its glory, and at the end of the day, it is reflected back to me. The other thing it's helped me to do is prune back my commitments. It's basically the distractions that are out there. I have subtracted so much from my life as a result of clearly seeing what is taking up all of my time that is not necessarily aligned with the outcomes that I desire. Obviously, I've talked about the fact that this practice has produced an awareness of that inner narration and some of the repeating patterns of how it likes to interpret what things mean. And it's great to have that reflected back. And I love that Miracle also helped me do the things that I normally would do on myself or for myself, but it automatically does this in such a natural way, and it reframes those experiences. Here's a different way that you could frame this versus what the narrator told you earlier today. And I'm like, yep, that is in perfect alignment with how I would actually choose to see it. And it's just amazing. It has helped me refine what I call the momentum methodology. That's something you've been hearing about a little bit here and there in the last several episodes of this podcast, and you will hear a lot more about in the weeks, months, and years ahead. It has helped me understand the need for protected focus of calendared actions, and I am so much better today at capturing myself when I get distracted and my focus has been pulled to something else, and I'm getting much more swift about capturing that in my awareness, sometimes within minutes and sometimes at the triggering event itself. I'm like, oh, nope, not going to go there. Let me capture this. I go over and get my Plod note. Hey, just this thought occurred to me. I'm tempted right now to go do this, but I'm not going to. Here's what I'd like to be reminded of later. Thank you. Going back to work. And that's it. And then boom, capturing it. I'm not perfect, but I'm better at protecting my focus because of this practice. Another thing that this practice has done is help me challenge the belief that I'm just not doing enough. I don't know about you, but I am a high achiever and I am a hard worker. I love to work. I love to produce. And I still probably have some lingering upbringing conditioned beliefs that, I need to work hard to earn. And I know that sometimes I look at what I do and I'm like, man, I get up at 4 every day and I go to bed right around 8 o'clock at night. And I'm like, it's like I devote the first few hours of my day to a morning routine. And then I go for a 2-mile walk. And then I have breakfast. I take a shower. I lay down and take a nap for an hour every day, Monday through Friday. Who does that? And Stephanie and I were walking today and I'm like, you know what? Why is it that I feel like I'm not working enough? And then I'm like, wait, I think if I look at my reflections and I look at how many hours, and it's very easy for me to ask ChatGPT or Mirror to say, hey, tell me how many hours did I do actually income revenue generating activities in my business today? And then I'm like, wait a second, I'm not at danger of working too few hours in my business. I'm actually, maybe I need to be reflecting on how can I actually reduce the number, because Sometimes I've been known to work 40 to 60 hours a week still, and that is not required for me and my work. So it's helped me become aware of that, and it's helped me strengthen boundaries, not just in my time and on my calendar, but also with other people's requests for my attention via text messages, emails, and any other means of communication. I am so much more willing to leave a message unread, not just for minutes, not just for hours, but sometimes days and maybe even a week to a week and a half. And you could just ask my friend Chris Nelson, who just finally got a response 1 week after his last Voxer message. Hi, Chris, if you're listening. Anyway, the most important thing, though, is I now have the ability, because of this practice, to recover the larger meaning of my days, and especially the ones that might otherwise have felt disappointing at the end of the day. I don't know about you, but I can have a ton of great things and then all of a sudden have just life dump a few things at my feet. We have a situation with our roof that started 2 years ago, a leak of water leaking from our master bedroom onto our bed. And it would happen every time it would rain. And we have been on it every single time, have a roofing contractor that just couldn't figure out what was going on. We went 11 months thinking it was completely solved. And just a week and a half ago, we had this one torrential rain, 3.5 inches of rain and sideways wind. And wouldn't you know it, the bedroom leaked again, reopening this 2-year experience. And so that was thing. My daughter, we just moved her home from Bowling Green, Kentucky, which is about 3 hours away from here. On Saturday, we drove 3 hours down, took 3 hours to load up everything out of her apartment, and then 3 hours driving back home. That was an entire day. And we have 1 week here to prepare before we actually load up a 15-foot U-Haul truck, and we put my daughter's Toyota Corolla on a tow trolley to drive 2 days from Kentucky to Fort Worth, Texas at 55 miles per hour if we obey the recommended speed limit for towing a car on a trolley behind a 15-foot U-Haul. 3 of us, my wife, myself, and our 21-year-old daughter in the front of a U-Haul for 2 days. And if all of that travel and stuff like that inside of all of these other things, meanwhile working on navigating the roofing company and repairs and whatever costs may or may not be associated with all of that, then my wife says, "Hey, Cliff, can you take a look at McKenna's car? It's making a creaking noise." And of course, one of the struts is out, and we're getting ready to tow her car to Texas, where we don't have any connections in Texas. We don't know who we can trust there. And it's like, so we've got to figure out, it's like, hey, we're leaving on Friday. Who can we find that can diagnose this strut, get us in, repair it, and have it done? And at what cost is that all going to happen? And is this all going to be done? I'm happy to tell you it's all worked out. Thankfully, but what I will tell you is none of those things were planned. I don't wake up in the morning and think, okay, where can I fit in the potential of a leaking roof that's been going on for 2 years? Where can I fit in this? You get the idea. And so sometimes those days where those things come up, sometimes it'll just be the overwhelming emotional response and the narrator telling stories. And it's like, man, this day simply did not go well. But you know what? There have been a number of days where that might have been my assessment of the day. Today sucked. Have you ever had one of those days? Well, let's just put it this way. In the last 3+ months that I've been doing daily logs and daily reflection, there have been a number of days that might have been labeled, "This day sucked. I just don't feel like I've done anything worthwhile." But you know what? That might be my feeling at 5:30 in the evening, but when I actually get my reflection back, there's never been a day where that was actually true. Never. It is amazing. Now, I do want to say this, an important caution to anyone If you want to mimic my daily logging practice and or my reflection practice in any means, shape, or whatever would be valuable for you, I do want to I am not asking AI to tell me who I am, and I do not allow AI to make decisions for me. There is a reason why I call my ChatGPT Mira, because all I'm doing is asking ChatGPT to give me a fuller record of my own words reflected back to me, my own lived experience. And yes, I have instructed it to give me a reflection that will surface some interpretation, but I am responsible for challenging that interpretation when I feel it needs to be challenged. I will correct it when I feel like it's missing context. I will reject it if it outright feels unaligned with what it says. But the value that it does bring to me is improved visibility of all of the things that have fallen out of my consciousness by the end of the day. You see, at the end of the day, the narrator is always going to offer us a version of that day. But the narrator, I don't know about you, but for me, it usually emphasizes what has been unfinished, uncertain, what is emotionally charged, what problems need to be solved. It's very much looking out for my survival. It's looking for all of the pain that could be experienced that needs to be resolved. And this practice helps me actually see the whole day, not just those unfinished, open loops, emotionally charged moments of the day. I don't claim that my daily log and or my reflection it's not meant to be any sort of perfect record. It's not why I put it in my journal. This is a perfect record of how my day went. No, it's still an incomplete record, but boy, it is the closest that I have ever experienced of seeing a more complete picture of my days. So I told you that if you stuck around to the end, if you'd like, I have made a complete daily reflection prompt that is available if you email me. All you have to do is put reflection prompt in the subject line. Email me cliff@cliffravenscraft.com. And if you tell me one area of your life or business where you would like to create more momentum in your life, and you ask me for the daily reflection prompt, I will personally read your email and I will copy and paste that entire prompt for my daily reflection for you. It is something that I have modified over the months, and the output is amazing. And of course, you can alter it as much as you desire. I hope that this episode inspires you to consider the value of the practice of a daily reflection using maybe an AI tool that could help you process transcripts after you have collected daily log check-ins. If this has resonated with you, feel free to email me, cliff@cliffravenscraft.com. Put reflection prompt in the subject line, share an area where you would like to have some momentum, and request that prompt, and I'll get it right back to you. Until next time, I encourage you to take everything you do to the next level.
Mindset Answer Man.